Hello, everyone. Today, we're diving into a case that is going to send chills down your spine. It's the kind of story that really makes you want to hold your loved ones a little tighter. This is the story of Alyson Appling-France, a young mother from Cleveland who was tragically murdered earlier this year. What makes this case even more horrifying is the cold-blooded and calculated nature of the crime. Alyson was followed for days, stalked like prey, and then she was ambushed and shot 17 times. 17 times, right in front of her young daughters.
Today we learned the two men convicted in the killing of a Cleveland mother in front of her children will spend the rest of their lives behind bars. We want to warn you the details of this case are disturbing.
You sold your lives for that bit of money you got to kill a young mother.
What the state describes as a murder for hire happened earlier this year on January 10th. A jury and a judge found 50-year-old Jamar Skanes and 35-year-old Alontez Beasley guilty of stalking and killing 29-year-old Alyson Appling-France as she went from her home to the Target on West 117th, then back to her home. With her two young daughters in the car, Beasley shot Alyson 17 times with an automatic weapon.
As you brutally executed her in front of her children. It was cold, it was calculated murder, completely devoid of any humanity.
Beasley chose not to speak in court today. Skanes, who was in the car during the stalking and killing, apologized for what Beasley did, but denied any involvement. The judge didn't buy it, and he sentenced both to life in prison without the possibility of parole. A third suspect, 44-year-old Clarence Bennett, is still on the loose.
We also heard from Alyson's mother talking about the impact this has had on her and Alyson's 10 and 8-year-old daughters. We'll hear from her in the news at 5.
It's just unfathomable. What kind of person could do that, let alone in front of innocent children? It's truly monstrous. We've got court transcripts, victim impact statements, and news reports that paint a picture of a crime that was planned and deliberate, utterly devoid of any humanity. Let's start by walking through what happened. The sources detail a timeline that is as heartbreaking as it is terrifying. It all began on January 10th of this year. Alyson and her daughters, who were just 6 and 10 years old at the time, were followed to a Target store by one of the suspects, Clarence Bennett. Bennett was essentially scouting their movements and feeding information to the two other suspects, Jamar Skanes and Alontez Beasley, who were already waiting near Alyson's apartment complex. Picture this: Alyson, probably happy, just a normal day shopping trip with her kids. She starts unloading groceries from her car, and that's when Beasley approaches and opens fire, shooting her 17 times. It's like something out of a nightmare. You think about all the mothers out there just doing everyday things with their kids, and then to have something like this happen, it's a parent's worst fear. What's even worse is that Skanes, Beasley, and Bennett were actually hired to kill Alyson. Someone wanted her dead so badly that they were willing to pay for it. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong or some heated argument that escalated. This was an execution. The sources don't reveal the motive or who might have ordered the hit, but it adds a layer of chilling calculation to an already horrific crime. This wasn't a moment of rage. This was planned, premeditated evil. What's particularly disturbing is the complete lack of remorse shown by the convicted. Skanes and Beasley were found guilty of aggravated murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and felonious assault. The judge did not mince words during sentencing. He called their actions heinous and disgusting, emphasizing the lasting terror inflicted on Alyson's daughters, who are now forced to grow up without their mother. He sentenced them to life in prison without the possibility of parole, making it clear that his sentence was not just about punishment, but also about protecting society, especially those little girls, from ever being harmed by these men again. But what about Clarence Bennett? the one who stalked Alyson and her daughters? He's still at large. Authorities consider him armed and dangerous, and there's a warrant out for his arrest. Until Bennett is apprehended, there's a sense of unease knowing that someone who played such a pivotal role in this heinous crime is still out there. That brings us to the voices of those most affected by this tragedy, the victim impact statements. Alyson's mother described her grief as a maze she can't escape, a never-ending nightmare of loss and pain. She talked about the emptiness left behind, the stolen future, and the milestones Alyson will never reach. Alyson's friend, Kenesha Ballard, addressed Skanes and Beasley directly in the courtroom. Her statement was filled with righteous anger, condemning their actions and highlighting the trauma they inflicted on those innocent girls who were forced to watch their mother die. During the trial, Beasley remained silent, but Skanes claimed he was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time and denied any involvement in the murder. The judge didn't buy it for a second, citing overwhelming evidence, including surveillance footage that placed Skanes at the scene of the crime. Skanes was trying to downplay his role and avoid taking responsibility for his actions, a common tactic among criminals, but the judge saw right through it. He made it clear that simply being present at the scene of such a brutal crime, especially when you have the opportunity to intervene or report it, makes you complicit. This case raises bigger questions about how we prevent tragedies like this from happening in the first place. As a society, we need to recognize the gravity of the problem and refuse to accept violence as inevitable. We need to challenge harmful attitudes and behaviors, support organizations that work to empower women and protect victims, and advocate for policy changes that address the root causes of violence. In part 2 of our deep dive, we will delve deeper into the broader implications of this case and explore potential solutions to combat violence against women and children. We'll also discuss the ongoing search for Clarence Bennett and what can be done to bring him to justice. Alyson's case isn't just a horrifying, isolated incident. It speaks to larger issues of violence against women and the disturbing rise of contract killings. Statistics show that women are disproportionately the victims of violence, often at the hands of someone they know. It's a terrifying reality for so many women out there. Behind those statistics are real people, lives cut short, and families shattered. In Alyson's case, the fact that it was a contract killing adds another layer of darkness to this tragedy. It wasn't a crime of passion or a heated argument gone wrong. It was planned, paid for, and executed with casual cruelty and utter lack of regard for human life. The psychological impact on Alyson's daughters and any child who witnesses such violence is devastating. They may suffer from PTSD, struggle with anxiety, depression, trust issues, and forming healthy relationships. The trauma can stay with them for a lifetime. It breaks my heart to think about what Alyson's daughters are going through and what their future holds. This wasn't just a crime against one woman. It was an attack on the very fabric of our community, on the safety and security that we all deserve to feel. We need to address these issues of violence against women, contract killings, and create a world where mothers don't have to live in fear for themselves and their children. It's a complex problem with no easy answers, but it starts with acknowledging the scope of the issue and refusing to accept it as the way things are. We need to speak out against violence, support victims, and advocate for policies that address the root causes. While we work towards a larger solution, there's still the immediate issue of bringing all those responsible for Alyson's murder to justice. Clarence Bennett is still out there. He was instrumental in this crime, and until he's apprehended, Alyson's family can't truly find peace. If anyone has any information about Bennett's whereabouts, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, they should contact the authorities immediately. Sometimes even the smallest detail can be the missing piece that cracks a case wide open. We'll include contact information, for the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office in the show notes. Someone out there knows where Clarence Bennett is, and that information could be crucial in bringing some closure to Alyson's family. Justice for Alyson means ensuring that every single person involved in her murder is held accountable for their actions. Alyson's story, as tragic as it is, can serve as a catalyst for change. It can remind us of the fragility of life, the importance of cherishing every moment, and the power we each possess to create a more just and compassionate society. Thank you for joining me in this deep dive into Alyson's case. It's been incredibly difficult to process, but it's also a stark reminder that we can't turn away from the tough issues. We all have a responsibility to stand up and speak out against violence in all its forms. This case has sparked a fire in me to make a difference in our community, to stand up for what's right, and to never stop fighting for a better, safer world.